Hi everyone, my name's Billy. I'm a scientist at Seattle Children's. Today, I'm joining you in our lab here in downtown Seattle, and we're going to talk about the brain. Welcome back. Now, before we get into the lesson, I'd like to review a little bit about the body. So inside our body, we have many different organs and many different systems, okay? And a system is just a group of organs that work together. So here I have my friend Torso Terry to help us review some of those. We'll start with the lungs. You don't mind if I take these, right, Terry? Thank you. So the lungs are part of the respiratory system. We also have the heart, which is part of the circulatory system. We have the liver and the stomach. They are part of the digestive system. And then finally, the one we're focusing on today is the brain. The brain is part of the nervous system. All right, now the brain isn't the only part of the nervous system. We also have, turn Terry around here, we have the spinal cord, which runs down the middle of the back, and the nerves, which extend all throughout the body, all the way out to your fingertips and down to your toes and everywhere in between. Okay, and the brain, spinal cord, and nerves work together as parts of the nervous system to send information around your body, receive information, and then interpret that information or figure out what to do with it. Okay, well, I'll just turn Terry back around here. All right, thank you, Terry. Oh. Okay, so one of the very important functions that your brain controls is movement. And oftentimes when we move, it starts with our senses. So we have 5 basic senses, right? We have sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. You get information from your senses. That information travels to your brain. Your brain interprets that information and figures out what to do with it. And then it sends a message back out to your body telling you what to do. So that message starts at your brain, travels down your spinal cord, out to the nerves that control your muscles. This results in your muscles contracting or squeezing, and then you move. Now, the cool thing about this is when you move, your muscles actually produce energy in the form of electricity. And depending on how you move, your muscles might produce different amounts of electricity. So today, we're going to measure how much electricity my muscles are producing using a device called an electromyograph. That's this device right here. Okay. Now, oftentimes in the hospital, we shorten that to EMG. It's much easier to just say EMG. But an electromyograph, if you look at the root words, you can understand what it means. So electro refers to electricity. Myo means muscle. And a graph is like a picture of information. So today we'll use an electromyograph to see the electrical activity in my muscles on this computer screen right here. All right, now to begin, I have this little piece of paper with little stickers on it. Okay, and we call these stickers electrodes. And what I'm going to do is just peel one off and place it on my left arm right there. I'll peel off another one. Also place that one on my left arm. And then finally, I'll peel off one more. Place it on my right arm, right there. So I have 2 on the left and 1 on the right. Okay, I'll set that to the side. And now I have these 3 wires. Okay, there's a red one, a green one, and a black one. And these wires are going to attach to the electrodes. So I'll start with the red wire here. They have these little clips. Just open that up, attach it to the electrode just like that. Put the green one over here, and then the black one will go on this side. So I have red and green on the left and black on the right. Okay, now before I go any further, I just want to point out this will not hurt. Okay, our doctors use these electromyographs with patients in our hospital every day, even newborn babies, all the way up to the elderly. So this will not hurt. We're measuring the electricity that my muscles produce. We're not actually sending anything into me. Okay, so I also have this little squishy brain that will help me with my movements today. And if we look over at the computer here, we'll see there's a little green play button. Okay, so in a moment, I'll press that green play button, and my first movement is going to be a gentle fist squeeze, kind of like I'm holding a baby bird. Okay, so I will press the green play button, and I'll just do my gentle baby bird hold for 10 seconds. So not squeezing too hard, pretty relaxed here, and there we go. Okay, so there's my first movement, my gentle fist squeeze. Now if we take a look at the screen here again, we'll notice on the left it says max energy. And that's the maximum amount of electricity that my muscles produced during this movement. So in this movement, we had 0.1 MV. Now MV is our unit of measurement today, and that just stands for millivolts. So in this first movement, it produces 0.1 millivolts of electricity. Not very much. Okay? So my next movement is going to be a hard fist squeeze, kind of like I'm crushing a rock. Okay? So I'll press this green play button again, and then I'll crush it for 10 seconds. Whoa, okay, way more electrical activity that time. As you can see on the screen, our max energy output was 1.5 millivolts. Okay, so quite the difference there. My third and final movement, I'm going to set the squishy brain down, I won't need that. This is going to be a fast wrist flip, kind of like I'm fanning myself off on a hot day. Okay, so I'll press that green play button, and I'll flip, 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 flip for 10 seconds. Oh, this is actually quite refreshing. I'll just flip, 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 almost there. All right, so there we go. And if we take a look at the screen here, my max energy for this one was 1.0 millivolts. So as you can see, all three movements produced different amounts of electricity. Okay, and oftentimes in the hospital, we might have a patient come in who is having difficulty moving one of their muscles, maybe an arm muscle, a leg muscle. And what we can do is we use the electromyograph to identify where they're having their difficulty, and then we can target treatment to that spot. So these electromyographs are a very important piece of equipment for us in the medical setting. All right, so I'm going to disconnect all these wires here, take off the electrodes, and we're going to move on and talk about brain anatomy. Now, anatomy is just another way to say the structure of something. So we're going to talk about the structure of the brain. And I have this little human brain model here. It has many different structures that control different things. Okay? I'm going to start at the bottom with what's called the brain stem. So the brain stem here at the bottom of the brain controls things that are very important for keeping us alive, but we wouldn't necessarily want to be thinking about those things all the time. So for example, breathing, or your heartbeat, or digestion, okay? Essential things for keeping us alive, but we don't want to be thinking about them all the time. So when I'm sitting here talking with you, I'm not constantly telling myself, breathe, 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 right? That would get exhausting and really distracting, but I'm still breathing. It's my brainstem that helps control that, okay? Up from the brainstem, we have what's called the cerebellum, which in Latin means little brain or small brain. It kind of looks like its own little brain there. The cerebellum controls things like balance and muscle coordination. So that way I'm not falling over sideways. Another great example is professional athletes. When they're out on the field making those amazing plays, their cerebellum is very active. Okay, so that's the cerebellum. And then up from the cerebellum, this is the cerebrum. Okay, and the cerebrum controls all of what we call the higher functions. Okay, things that really make us who we are. Things like language, emotions, learning, memory, those sorts of things. Okay, and you'll notice that this cerebrum is multicolored. Our real brain doesn't look like that. These colors help us identify different areas of the cerebrum. Okay, and we call those different areas lobes. So I'm just going to go over those now. We have four main areas or lobes that I'd like to talk about. Up front here, we have what's called the frontal lobe. Okay, and the frontal lobe controls things like problem solving, motor function, language, emotions, those sorts of things. Okay, so if I were to decide I'd like to walk over that way and then actually walking over there, my frontal lobe helps control that. All right, up top, this blue and purplish area is called the parietal lobe. And the parietal lobe helps control our senses. Okay, so for example, earlier we mentioned the 5 basic senses. When you feel something hot or cold or smooth or rough, how do you know what that sensation is, that feeling? Your parietal lobe helps figure that out. Okay? On the sides, in yellow, we have what's called the temporal lobe. Okay? And the temporal lobe helps with things like hearing. That makes sense, it's on the sides, right? And memory. A lot of your memories are stored in the temporal lobe. And then finally, on the back, we have what's called the occipital lobe. And the occipital lobe helps with our eyesight. Okay, so when we see something, information travels in through our eyes back to the occipital lobe, where that information is processed and helps us determine what we're looking at. Okay, so many different parts to the brain here, and they all control very important functions that we use every day. Now, as cool as this is to look at a model brain, I think it would be even cooler to look at a real brain. So I have a real brain for us to look at today in this container, and I'm going to start by putting on my safety gloves here. All right, and this brain is actually a cow brain. So the reason we're looking at a cow brain today is it has very similar structures to a human brain, so it's an excellent model for comparison. Okay, so I'll just take the lid off here. The first thing you might notice is the shape and the color and the size of the brain. Now, this cow brain is a little bit smaller than a human brain. Our brains are a little bit bigger, but the color is very consistent. Okay, and you might also notice all these little dark lines on the top of the brain. These are actually blood vessels. So blood, as we know, is very important for the body. It carries oxygen and nutrients to all the cells in our body so they can function properly. One of the places your blood needs to carry that oxygen and nutrients is up to your brain. Okay, so these blood vessels are making sure that blood is getting up to your brain. Now, this brain also has all the same structures that we talked about with the human brain model. We have the brain stem at the bottom, right, controlling all of those really important functions to help keep us alive. We have the cerebellum, helping with balance and motor function. And then we have the cerebrum, controlling all of those higher functions, right, like learning and memory. So very similar structures. Now, one other thing I want to point out is we mentioned the occipital lobe is on the back of the cerebrum, which is kind of interesting, right? Because it's getting information from the eyes. And how does that information get from the eyes to the occipital lobe? Well, if we look at the bottom of the brain, you'll see this X, okay? And this X is actually a very important nerve. So this is called the optic nerve. And the optic nerve carries information from the eyes back to the occipital lobe so that you can process that information and figure out what you're looking at. Okay, so we have many different nerves that help carry information all around our body. Pretty interesting. So this is an excellent example of a brain and a great comparison to a human brain. All right, I'll just set this to the side, take off my gloves. So in summary today, we talked about the brain and the spinal cord and nerves and how they work together as parts of the nervous system to send, receive, and interpret information all around us. We talked about an electromyograph and how we can use this electromyograph, or EMG, to measure the electrical activity of muscles when they move. We talked about brain anatomy, and we looked at a model of a human brain to learn about different structures of the brain and the different functions that those structures control. And then finally, we looked at a real cow brain, which is a great comparison to a human brain. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Bye.